Plenty of political books promise to tell the secrets of the back rooms and campaign buses. Many don't. However, a new book from one of the most seasoned politicos in the country does deliver. John Laschinger has run more than 50 campaigns at every level and across party lines, and he tells some tales about it in his new book. It's called Campaign Confessions, Tales from the War Rooms of Politics. And John Laschinger joins us now here in the studio. Lovely to have you here.
I'd love to be here.
I thought campaign managers spent a lifetime accumulating all of these secrets of the trade to keep them away from their competitors, and yet here you are giving away all the secrets for less than $30. So what gives?
Well, I couldn't get 40.
Yes, okay.
I just thought at this point in my life, I've done 50 campaigns. I'm 74 years of age. I think I've got one or two campaigns left in me. But I just thought it was time to sit down. I had just finished the Olivia Chow campaign.
For mayor last time?
In 2014. It was early 2015, and my great friend Jeff Stevens and I sat down and talked, and it was time to maybe do a second book.
Why does politics need people like you who do what you do?
That's a very good question. And I guess I answer that every time I talk to a candidate, and they don't say, "Why do I need you?" But a candidate is the most important person in an election. But having said that, they can't do everything. And it's best if they have someone who is side by side with them, who can complement their strengths. The best example of that was John Crosby. When I ran his leadership in 1983, I knew the party really well, because I'd been national director of the party before
PC
that.
Party, Progressive Conservative Party.
The PC Party and National Party. And he had the ideas. He had the free trade idea in his head and all that. So we complemented each other very well. We defined each other's role. I'll do this, you do that.
What is the attraction? I get what the attraction for them is. Winning is fabulous and being center front is fabulous. What's the attraction for you?
You get to make a difference. I mean, and I think of that over the first attraction, frankly, when I met Bill Davis in 1971, and 2 months later, as a volunteer, I'm in his house in Brampton celebrating majority government. And I'm 25 years of age, and I say, this is pretty cool stuff. This is important stuff for the province. And so, yeah, it's a rush. There's a bit of a rush.
Let's understand the voters a little more, because one of the things that surprised me when I read this was you've discovered 25% of the voters make up their minds in the last few days of the campaign, and 9% don't decide until Election Day.
That's right.
Why do they wait so long?
They've got wives, they've got kids, they've got jobs, they've got healthcare concerns, they've got the kids flunking out of school. I mean, they've got a whole bunch going on in their lives, and they really don't need. They keep procrastinating. They keep putting off the decision. You don't have to make a decision. A pollster calls you and says, "Who are you going to vote for?" You say, "Oh, Charlie Brown." But you really don't make up your mind if you don't have to.
Does every election ultimately come down to, I want more of the same, or I want to change?
Yes. Every
It's that
election
simple.
is either, am I happy with what I got, or is it time to change? Except in a situation where, as an example, an incumbent is not running. Now, in the States today, Obama is not running, but his closest clone, Hillary Clinton, is. And therefore, time for change will play a major role. And if I was Clinton today, I'd be a little worried. 68 to 70% want change, and she is the non-change candidate.
But the other guy may be too much change.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the other positive for Clinton is that Obama, the incumbent, is at his highest favorability ratings for a long, long time. And so people will be saying, "Oh, gee, I wish we could have him back again."
You're going to forgive me for saying this, but as I read the book, I actually thought some of your losing efforts were some of the most interesting campaigns you managed, as opposed to some of the ones that you won. So I want to just take a look at 3 campaigns that really intrigued me, and I want to start with the 1991. You managed Mike Harris's first campaign in 1990. He'd only been leader for a few months. He came 3rd. But you liked that campaign, even though he came third. What was so nice about it?
Well, we were expected to lose. We had low expectations. It wasn't clear that we could keep the number of seats we had. We ran a great campaign, and we destroyed David Peterson with the ad, the fish ad, and why are we having this election for $30 million? You should ask why, and that became the ballot question, and it was the ballot question for the whole campaign, and David Peterson lost.
You set the ballot question, but you didn't benefit from it. The NDP and Bob Ray actually benefited from it.
But from the research I had starting the campaign, Peterson was at 40%, the NDP were at 32%, and we were at 20%. And even if I took all of Peterson's, and I wouldn't, if Peterson fell apart, Ray was going to get 2 votes, I was going to get 1. So by destroying Peterson, we knew we were going to elect Bob Ray.
The 2007 campaign that you ran for John Tory when he was Ontario PC Party leader, you were doing some focus groups on his plan to offer public funding for religious schools, and here's a quote from the book. A comment from an older man in a focus group held in Peterborough stuck in my mind as we organized our campaign. After listening to a description of our faith-based policy, he said, quote, "Let me get this straight. What they are proposing is to pay Muslim kids to make bombs in the basement of the schools. Is that correct?" Okay, what did you learn when you heard that?
I knew we would have some issues with the policy. But in the end, the people of Ontario, and I don't want to spend a lot of time explaining faith-based funding because we couldn't explain it during the campaign, and I'm not going to explain it today any better.
Offering public funds for parents to put their children in religious schools.
And it was fairness. Question of fairness.
Because Catholics have it.
Ontario is the only jurisdiction that has funding for one religion, Catholic, and funding for no other. And in 1998, the United Nations Committee passed a resolution saying that Ontario is against...
in violation
of not human rights, but whatever the issue was. And when I would explain or listen to the policy from Liberal supporters, they had sympathy for it. They were going to vote Conservative because a woman up in Barrie said to me, I'm a Catholic. My kids all get paid to go to school and I don't have to pay extra. But I've got a friend across the street, a Jewish fellow who's got 2 kids. He has to pay the full freight. And that's not fair. So Liberals were buying into the policy on a sense of fairness.
And yet the thing exploded on you, and you said it came down to an issue of party discipline. What do you mean?
2 MPPs who had signed on to the policy, Bill Murdoch and Garfield Dunlop, decided that with 10 days to go that they would jump ship and they would tear the party unity apart on this. And our polling numbers on from that night on went.
So had they stayed true,
we would have won.
You think you would have beaten McGuinty in that second McGuinty government?
We would have won. I'm convinced of it.
Did you tell them that at the time?
I told Murdoch that he was going to win his seat. He said he was going to lose it. I said you're going to win it by 20 points. He won it by 14. But
a win is a win.
A win is a win.
So that disloyalty, quote unquote, you think cost John Tory a chance to be premier?
It did.
Third campaign. This was the one you talked about earlier, 2014. You're not with John Tory this time, actually. You're with Olivia Chow this time. Doug Ford, of course, the other candidate in the race. And here's a quote from the book. You say, the moment Olivia declared her candidacy, she became the odds-on favorite to win. But she was the victim of some of the most appalling racist, sexist, and vulgar abuse I have had the misfortune to witness in my life in politics. It disgusted me. Much of it originated with the supporters of the Ford brothers. A regular stream of hate mail arrived at the Chow headquarters, including in the early weeks an envelope containing human feces. 2 days before the election, a man on the street in downtown Toronto actually yelled at her, "Get the F out of here, this is Ford Nation," and then an epithet starting with the letter B. How much of this shook your impression of what we like to think of as a very tolerant, open city?
One of the strengths of Toronto is that it's a diverse, multicultural city. It's one of our great strengths. but there are obviously a core group of people who don't buy into that. Now, let me back up. That didn't defeat her, but that was the environment that in certain parts of the city that we were dealing with. What defeated her was we had huge expectations. She was the odds-on favorite, and then when she started to perform, she couldn't reach the high level. The bar was very high.
Were the expectations unreasonable for her?
Yeah, and they were created by polls for a year based just on name recognition. She was Jack Layton's widow, and so in the first bunch of research I did, what do you know about her? Nada. I knew she was Jack Layton's widow, and she was an NDP MP. That was it. They didn't know she'd been a school trustee. They didn't know she'd been on Mel Lastman's budget committee. They didn't know she'd been a city councilor. They knew nothing about her. So it was all built on name recognition.
So when you're the guy whose job it is, therefore, to change that so that more people will consider her, what do you do?
Well, in this case, the other piece of the equation, there was huge desire for change. 2/3 of the people wanted to get rid of Rob Ford. And on election night, Doug Ford got 34%, 1/3. So the numbers didn't change from the whole campaign, even though they changed candidates, they wanted change. But we're in a situation where, despite that, well over 50% thought Ford's agenda was good for Toronto. The penny pinching, saving money, frugality, that brand image. They said that. Where is Olivia on that? NDP? They think are free spending socialists. They're going to spend to oblivion. So while we were benefiting from the time for a change, people were leery about her ability to follow a fiscally conservative fiscal policy into City Hall. The door got open because we didn't meet expectations. They started to look around. Come John Tory. He sounds like he's a conservative. He was the PC leader. We'll go with him. And the whole campaign, we went from a 10-point lead to a 10-point deficit in 10 days.
In 10 days, 20-point swing in the polls.
The first 10 days of July, the middle of the summer.
So when you see that happening, again, as a campaign manager whose job it is to figure out how to respond to that, do you pull your candidate aside and say, look, unless you do A, B, and C, this race is over?
No.
You don't do that? What do you do?
Well, I'd made a commitment to her that we were not going to leave her with a deficit. And so by the middle of July and early August, she and I had a conversation. I said, look, I'm going to keep that promise. I'm not going to spend money we don't have, and whatever happens. But she was picking up the same thing on the street. She's a good politician. She was picking it up on the street that it was over.
You knew in August it was over.
Yeah.
2 months before Election Day.
Yeah.
So how do you get up every day and you and your candidate go through the motions for another 60 days when you know it's hopeless?
Put a smile on your face. That's the tough part.
Yeah.
Because with technology and with research, you get to have polling every night. And you wake up in the morning, you're 2 points up, and it's a good day. Wake up in the morning, you're 3 points down. You still got to smile because the rest of the group doesn't know it. Now, recently, Nick Nanos has been doing research every night and publishes it every night, so the whole world knows. So it isn't just you that knows, it's
everybody.
Everybody knows.
How did you tell John Tory, whose 2007 provincial campaign you ran, that now that you're running for mayor, I'm actually not going to work for you, I'm going to work for your opponent? Do you have that conversation?
No, he didn't ask me.
He didn't ask you to work for him?
No.
Oh, so you felt...
And Olivia came to me about a year before the election and said, the interesting thing, I had run the campaign against her husband in 1991. I ran June Rowland's campaign
This is for Toronto Mayor again.
for Toronto Mayor again.
Okay.
So this is 1991 to 2016. That's 25 years later. I'm running his widow's campaign, but he credited me with beating him in 1991.
Now, here's the other thing, and I hear this from your friends in the Progressive Conservative Party, who, you know what's coming here. They cannot understand how you, who was sort of an original member of the Big Blue Machine back in 1971 as a kid of 20-something, how it's possible that you end up running campaigns for New Democrats like David Miller and Olivia Chow for mayor. How do you sort of justify that to yourself and your friends and so on?
I'm a professional. I mean, I've taken this on as a profession. Instead of selling computers, I'm selling people.
If you are the most brilliant campaign manager in the world,
And I'm not.
okay, but you've got a turkey as a candidate, can your brilliance overcome the candidate's inferiority?
No.
If you're the worst campaign manager in the world and your candidate is awesome, can that still work?
Yeah, and the candidate will probably win. The candidate's name is on the ballot. People are not stupid. They're not voting for the war room. They're not voting for John Laschinger. They're voting for Bill Davis or John Crosby or Brian Mulroney or whoever.
But frontrunners lose all the time. And I mean, take Hillary Clinton in 2008, big frontrunner.
Yeah.
Olivia Chow in the case of the 2014 Toronto mayor's race. Frontrunners lose all the time.
Yeah.
Is it because of them, or is it because of the wrong strategy by their backroom people, or what?
It could be the cards they're dealt. As I say, with Olivia, it was high expectations. It was people wanted fiscal responsibility, and she was seen as a spender, not because of what she did, but because of the image of the NDP. The same thing with Hillary. I mean, Hillary had an excellent chance in 2008, but she muddied up the message. Instead of, they wanted change from George Bush. They wanted change. Americans wanted huge change, and Obama said, my single message is change. Believe, we can.
Yes, we can.
We can. Yes, we can. And Hillary was saying change with experience. That's like progressive conservative. That's an oxymoron. Change and experience are two different meanings.
Yeah.
And it took her a long time to catch on that she wasn't grabbing the change mantle. And she tried at the end to do it, but it was too late.
Let's finish up on this. If I could take you back a year and more ago, when Stephen Harper was running for his 5th election, I think, as leader of the Conservative forces in Canada, he basically started that election at 30%, and he ended up on election day pretty much at 30%, a little higher.
31.
31, okay. So in terms of trying to move the vote during that whole 70-plus day campaign, nothing happened. You weren't the campaign manager.
No, I wasn't.
Had you been the campaign manager, do you think you could have done anything to change the outcome of that?
Stephen's pretty hard-headed. I mean, he's pretty single-focused, which is one of his strengths, I guess. When the time for change is that high, you got two choices. You either become a change agent and announce some things that are change that you haven't done before, or you double down and you say, look at, if you vote for that guy, I mean, I'm going to spend you into oblivion, and you frighten people, you scare people about the options, about the alternative. He decided to double down and try and scare people about what, but the other thing, I mean, back to expectations, he spent a pile of money driving down the expectations for Justin Trudeau. And Trudeau could easily exceed those low expectations once the campaign started. And the public sort of looked at him and said, oh, he's not as bad as what Harper said he was. Looks okay to me.
I think I read in your book where the debate prep guy, Corey Tenike, said if Trudeau comes out on stage with his pants on,
He'll win.
He'll win.
It's a win for him. So it's fascinating that it all gets down to human values, though. I mean, life is all about values. People either think you have values that they can ascribe to, that they want, that they desire. Humility, compassion, courage. I mean, there's a bunch of them. And Harper, in the end, lost the values race to Trudeau, because Trudeau's values, sunny optimism, compassion. We're going to, life can be better. Caught on better than,
Gotcha. These stories and more in Campaign Confessions. John Laschinger, good of you to come into TVO tonight. Thanks.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit TVO.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.